Hey, welcome back to the Confidad podcast. So glad to have you with us. Today, my name is Dan Tinquist, your host. And as we do every day, let's begin with our fatherhood mindset. Say this with me. I'm the only one who can fulfill the father role I have, so I choose to do it well. I get to show up well for my kid. Imperfection is reality. Ownership is a choice. Today is brand new, so is tomorrow. I am wholly loved, so I will love wholly. Yesterday on the podcast, we talked about establishing point A, offered you that worksheet to work through. And as you do that, and as you dig into this journaling and diving deep into like, what's the baggage you're carrying? What I like to have people do in this time as we begin to move right into equipping is to identify like the top one or two pain points that are true for you right now in your parenting journey. Think about that for just a second. Like as you reflect back on the work we did yesterday, what are the top two things that stick out? Or maybe even just one. Things like, I'm so busy, I don't feel like I'm living my life, but life is living me. Or I wish I was patient with my kids, but I'm not. Or I wish I was always patient with my kids, but I'm not. Maybe you have opportunity paralysis where it's like you have too many things you're trying to do for your kids and you feel like if you say no to any of them, you're like ripping opportunity away from them. So things like that, maybe other things, maybe you have relationship stress or whatever. Think about that 10 seconds. All right. Now, as you think about that pain point, imagine what it would look like to not have that thing be true, like to have solved that pain, to have resolved the issue in the new year. Maybe even by like quarter one of 2025. What would that look like? How would your life change? How would the stress levels change? How would your day-to-day change if that thing was no longer causing you pain, no longer true? I have a hunch it'd feel pretty good, right? Top pain point, causing a lot of stress, a lot of mind share. If it wasn't true anymore, imagine the relief, the freedom, right? That's kind of one of those first mile markers that I'd like us to aim for as we look at your point B. Okay, we'll craft point B a little bit later, but before we even begin that journey, before we even know where we're going, we kind of have to start establishing the first few steps here. Have you ever driven to a summit or hiked to a summit? I want you to think about that, like physically hiking to a summit, physically driving to the summit of a mountain. As you reflect back on that memory and the journey up the mountain to the summit, I want you to think, was it always up and to the right? Was it always like, the markets and stocks, we want everything to go up and to the right, human progress, all the things up and to the right, up and to the right. That's what growth looks like. Here's the reality. Human progress looks a lot more like a hike to the summit than it does up and to the right. And I hope that this picture, this metaphor gives you some freedom and some grace for yourself to be like, but I already dealt with that. I've already been there. I feel like I already should be over this thing, but I feel like I'm going down again. That is the human experience. The human experience may be reaching a summit. I've reached a few summits in my life. It's fantastic. However, in order to reach the summit, you need to go on the shadow side of the mountain. In order to reach the summit, you need to go down to go up. Like you've been there. You've been on the switchbacks. You've gone on the road, and you know that it isn't always only up and to the right. In fact, if it was only up and to the right, it would be boring. The scenery would be terrible, and it'd be really, really, really hard because you're only ever going up. Progress and growth as a human is not just up and to the right. In fact, it looks a little bit more like if you were to take that graph, that up and to the right graph, zoom out and turn it and make it 3D, it would look a lot more like a spiral. A lot more like ups, downs, shadow sides, light sides, all of that would be a part of the journey. Okay, so as we begin this journey, as we start to look at what does it look like to alleviate that big pain point in your life, or those big couple pain points in your life, you got to understand that sometimes in order to reach the summit, there's going to have to be some hard work. There's going to have to be some going to the shadow side of the mountain. But all the way along the journey, there'll be mile markers, right? Just like on a road where you kind of know, or if you've ever hiked before, like the Appalachian Trail, they always have these big stone markers to know you're still on the trail. We give you those. We help you understand that that is there. And part of those mile markers would be these few things, these few practices to practice every day. Okay, there's 3 really important constants that we need as we're going on this journey towards point B. Okay, the first constant that we need is the ability to be content with what is today. When I work with entrepreneurs, they say contentment is like it's a taboo thing. We don't talk about being content because we always want to be driven. We always want to go, go, go. But here's the reality. If you want to be present with your kids, contentment is the pathway to presence. If you're always driven for more, you're always striving for more, you're always wanting to grow, it's really hard to be present with your kids because you feel like you should be doing something else to reach progress when you're spending time with your kids. So the first constant, being content with what is today, meaning like, are you able to say, what I have today is enough for today? If you have a roof over your head, if you have food in your bodies and you have clothes and your kids are taken care of, like that's enough, right? So say what, like I'm content with what is today, but still driven for growth tomorrow. Okay, still moving in a forward direction. That's one of our mile markers. The next constant is that you do need to be driven to grow. You can't just sit in contentment because that's the other side of it. If we only just ever sit in contentment, we'll never grow. We'll be like, meh, it is what it is. Can't teach an old dog new tricks or a middle-aged dog new tricks. Like we can always be growing if we're driven to grow, driven to reach the next corner. Okay. The last little bit is kindness in failure. You're gonna screw up. And if you know that, use it as an opportunity to push forward, but be kind to yourself. If you're always beating yourself up about how you suck and how you can never do anything and you always screw up and even if you try, blah, blah, blah. If you're always beating yourself up, like we know this in business, right? Like if you're always being negative and you're always thinking like you can't get it done, it's going to be a struggle. But if you understand in your parenting that you're going to fail, choose to be kind to yourself and choose to forgive yourself. So, but when you have all 3 of those things together, it's a recipe for progress. It's a recipe for continuation on this journey to the summit. If you don't have contentment every day and you're always driven to grow, you're never going to be present with your kids. But if you have contentment, you're not driven to grow, you're just going to meh, right? But if you don't have kindness for yourself in failure, you're going to get exhausted and burned out because you're always going to focus on your mistakes instead of saying, yep, I made a mistake, choosing not to focus on it. I'm choosing to learn from it and grow from it, but not let it define me and define yourself as a parent. Okay. Myself, am I a perfect dad? No. Am I driven to grow? Yes. Am I content with what I have today? Yes. Am I kind to myself in failure? Working on that. But I try really hard to do that so that I can show up well for my kids, because when those 3 things are constant, those 3 things are actually there in my life, I can show up better in those moments, those 5-minute windows 3 times a day, in a way that my kids have me. I'm available to them, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and relationally. Okay. So those few things need to stay constant as we grow. So as we think about this idea of moving from point A to point B, I hope that you will take these 3 constants: contentment for what's today, driven for growth tomorrow, and kindness and failure. Pack them in your backpack as we go on this journey. Because those 3 constants, if you have them and you use them, the path towards the summit becomes a lot clearer, and you're able to measure that progress as these mile markers. You can ask yourself that question even like the end of the day, right? To say, am I content today? Am I driven to grow tomorrow? And can I be kind to myself in this failure? All right. Wonderful. Moving into our empowering moment today. The last thing I want to empower you with is actually a practice, but it will empower you because it will bring awareness. Many of us probably claim to be self-aware, but are you actually aware of where you're struggling in your parenting? Are you actually aware of where you're winning? Those are 2 very important things that you need to be able to say and articulate every single day with every single one of your kids. And we only reflect on it. We only go there so that we can become aware. we can start to measure patterns. We can start to understand, where am I struggling and where am I succeeding, right? It helps to bring you into interdependence, because you go, I'm really struggling right here, but man, I'm winning over here. Okay. So every day, end of the day, 5 minutes before you go to sleep, grab a journal, a pen, and write physically with something on something physical. Okay. No typing, no thumbs or fingers. And answer these 2 questions end of every day. And I promise you, you stick to this for 2 to 3 weeks, it will start to unlock some things in your mind and help you build confidence in your parenting, awareness in your parenting, and then also help you to begin to measure strengths and weaknesses and identify those growth areas. Okay. So answer these 2 questions end of the day. First question: where did I struggle today? What's the biggest parenting struggle I had today? Full disclosure, for me, I'm recording this podcast while my kids are home, and I was getting a little bit frustrated in the middle of it, but I was like, gotta get this done. Okay. So my failure today was not getting it done while the kids were at school and choosing to do this while they're here. My failure today was being impatient. Okay. Parenting win. What's your parenting win? At the end of the day, write down, what's my parenting win today? What did I do well? Friend Aaron says, what we celebrate, we cultivate. So if you want to cultivate healthy parenthood, healthy fatherhood, you got to celebrate it. Write it down, declare it, say, hey, I did well at this today. And that is a gift that you get to give yourself as you say, you know what? I did show up well for my kids today. When they were trying to work through something, I just listened. Instead of trying to correct or explain or fix something for them, I just listened. It's a great win. So, hope today you're reminded of what's true. You feel equipped as we begin this journey from A to B, and empowered to start your journaling progress today. You're empowered to start your journaling today. Like I said, stick with it for 2 to 3 weeks, and you'll be amazed at what comes to light for you in your fatherhood. Thanks for joining us. We will see you tomorrow for the next Saturday Short. Peace.